and welcome to Crime Bytes, the show where we talk about some truly bizarre and disturbing crime cases. My name is Liz, and today is True Crime Tuesday. Today we're going to talk about a case that literally hit me right in the heartstrings, and I'm sure many of you feel the same way, especially my friends enthusiasts. Let's meet Matthew Perry. Matthew Perry is best known for playing Chandler Bing in the TV series Friends. He was definitely one of my favorites. We're going to go ahead and start at the beginning for this one. We're going to start in Williamstown, Massachusetts, which is ironically my current city of residence. Yay! It's known primarily for being a college city. Williams College is the second oldest college in Massachusetts. It is a selective private liberal arts college. Just make sure when class is in session that you don't take this main drag, because it'll take you a good extra 10 to 15 minutes with all the crosswalking. Anyways, Williamstown is a really nice, quiet place to live. We've got some good hiking trails as well. Me, my son, and our dog are always exploring these wooded areas where you can get a little lost if you try, but not too lost, which is really nice. And it gets really pretty in a month or so when the leaves start changing. So this is where Matthew Perry would be born on August 19th of 1969. He was born to John Bennett Perry, a model and actor, and Suzanne Morrison, who was a journalist, but she also ended up becoming the press secretary to the Canadian Prime Minister Pierre Trudeau. Perry would not stay in Williamstown, Massachusetts for very long because when he was only a year old, his parents would end up divorcing, and he would be raised primarily by his mother, who would remarry another Canadian journalist and decide to start a family in Ottawa, Ontario. The pair would have 4 more children together, and apparently his half-siblings would give Perry standing ovations at his earlier performances. When he was around 10 years old, it is said that Perry began to display some concerning behavior. He would say that he kind of felt like an outsider or like he didn't completely belong in his mom's new family, which is really sad. It doesn't sound like they had a terrible family either, but that is how Matthew felt, and as a result, he kind of started acting out. He would be caught stealing and smoking, and another pretty notable incident that occurred was that he actually beat up one of his classmates, Justin Trudeau, who, if you don't know, was the Prime Minister of Canada from November 4th of 2015 to July 18th of 2018. And I don't know about you, but that would kind of be like saying I beat up the former president. I'm not going to say which, but insert your president of choice here. It gave me a little chuckle, and that was Matthew Perry at 10. At age 14, Matthew would start experimenting with alcohol, and by age 18, he would be drinking excessive amounts on the daily. Up until he was 15, he was playing tennis for about 10 hours a day, and he was one of the best ranked junior players in Canada. He was actually looking at becoming a professional tennis player, but life seemed to have other plans for him because at 15, he would move to LA to live with his father, and although he would try to pick up tennis there, the competition would be a bit fiercer, so professional tennis became less of a reality for him. He enrolled in prep school and started studying acting. It seemed he was particularly talented at his improvisational comedy courses, which for those of you familiar with his work makes perfect sense. He did have one guest appearance in 1979 as a child actor, but pretty much right after he moved to LA at 15, he started getting guest appearances on different shows. Then in 1988, at 19, he would make his first film debut in A Night of the Life of Jimmy Reardon. He had appearances in shows such as Beverly Hills 90210, Growing Pains, and Sydney. Then at 24 years old, he was the youngest member cast for the show 6 of 1, which would later be renamed Friends. This show would run for 10 seasons from 1994 to 2004 and be wildly successful and literally make Matthew Perry a household name. I loved him so much as Chandler Bing. I loved Joey as a teenager, but I loved Chandler, almost wanted to be like him, or if that makes any sense. I don't know. What about you guys? Did you ever watch Friends? And if so, who is your favorite character? I'm going to play this quick clip of his co-stars describing him so you can get a feel for him from the people closest to him at that time.
Well, what people may not know about Matthew Perry is that he's probably one of the most sensitive people, as well as being funny and a genius. He's also
he's a genius too.
And he's very smart. He played besides tennis. I think you speak French.
Un peu.
Un peu. And he's a really strong, supportive, dear friend.
Matthew Perry is, I mean, I know it's been said, one of the funniest people, but I don't know what I'm going to do not seeing you every single day and laughing. I mean, that's something I'm really going to miss because I don't know of anyone who makes me laugh as much. And
Matthew, I hope that he's just grown so much, and I'm so proud of him. He's so strong, and I just love him.
Thanks.
And Matthew Perry is so razor sharp and smart and inventive and knows right where the funny is. It's really great working with you. I've learned a lot. When there's a sensitive moment, he'll make a joke, but really he's an old softy. He's a good
Anyhow, obviously this is still a true crime channel. It's still True Crime Tuesday, and things aren't going to end well for Mr. Perry. Unfortunately, he would be let down by the people who were supposed to be looking out for him and his well-being, and were doing anything but that. So as you can see, Matthew was just one of those people you couldn't help but love. He was super popular because of Friends. He had other film roles such as 3 to Tango, The Whole 9 and 10 Yards, Fools Rush In, Almost Heroes, and one of my favorites, Serving Sarah. I also love Elizabeth Hurley very much. He did a great job, and he was generally a very goofy but lovable character, and it sounds like he was similar to this in real life, but also incredibly intelligent and slightly tortured on the inside as a result of that. And because of that, he would attempt to numb himself with various substances. As we mentioned before, he was basically a full-blown alcoholic. He says by the time he was 14, he would also have an addiction to Vicodin that he developed after he was in a jet ski accident in 1997. He would claim to take up to 55 pills a day. And when Friends wrapped up, Perry did a few darker roles, some off-Broadway productions, TV shows, and a Friend reunion. Then in 2018, he would spend 5 months in the hospital and actually almost lose his life from a gastrointestinal perforation caused by opiate abuse. By 2022, he had had 14 stomach surgeries, 15 stays in rehab, along with other therapies and expenses that he estimated cost him about roughly $9 million. That's pretty wild. He also considered himself to be a spiritual man and say that he believed in God. He used Alcoholics Anonymous to help him work through his alcoholism. Here is a small clip where he talks about addiction.
I want people to understand that they're not alone, that there are other people feeling exactly the way they're feeling, that their behavior is not insane, that they have a disease, and it's not their fault.
I couldn't agree more. As far as his romantic life, he was linked to famous names such as Julia Roberts, Yasmin Bleeth, and Lizzie Kaplan. He was engaged to literary manager Molly Hurwitz from 2020 to 2021 when the pair decided to end the engagement. In 2022, he published a memoir entitled Friends, Lovers, and the Big Terrible Thing. He opens, "Hi, my name is Matthew. Although you may know me by another name, my friends call me Maddie, and I should be dead." I love that. Sorry, if you get it, you get it. And he tells his story like only he can. Although the book had some mixed reviews, I think it's great he chose to tell his story. It helped me on my journey, and I'm sure many others as well, and I think that was kind of his point, so. Anyways, Matthew Perry would start using ketamine as a form of psychotherapeutic treatment. There has been evidence spanning back as far as 20 years that ketamine can help treat depression and suicidal ideology. It's really big in working with suicidal thoughts. However, it is a Schedule III hallucinogenic drug, and when used is typically supposed to be under the supervision and guidance of a psychologist. For reference, heroin is a Schedule I drug, cocaine is a Schedule II drug, and Schedule III drugs are considered illegal for recreational use, but less harmful or have less potential to be abused than the Schedule I and II drugs. Unlike traditional antidepressants, which target the neurotransmitter serotonin or neuroepinephrine, ketamine targets glutamate, which is one of the most abundant chemical messengers in the brain. It is said that ketamine can stimulate or form new neural pathways in the brain as well. So when used properly, the results can be highly favorable. I know I keep talking about my week in the hospital. I don't know, the cases I keep picking all have kind of something that brings me back. But when researching this, I found another correlation. Anyhow, basically, I knocked my heart out of whack a couple weeks back, ended up sitting in the hospital, and they started me on these low doses of heart medication, and they didn't work, so they gave me this larger dose of different medication, and it straightened me back out. If that didn't work, though, they were going to have to put me out and give me the shock me. But they kind of liken the large dose of medication to a chemical version of shock. And I think people who are more knowledgeable, you can correct me if I'm wrong, but I think that's similar to what the ketamine is supposed to do to the brain. And there's also the electroshock therapy, which is still used in more extreme cases today alongside or instead of methods like this ketamine. So I thought that correlation was pretty neat, and the concept of fixing or rewiring a brain is just fascinating to me. But that is the idea, to use the medicine to shock it instead of actual electricity. But ketamine can become addictive. And I can tell you exactly how something like that works for someone with an addictive personality or a brain wired like that, because I have one right here. It experiences something it really likes and it says, wow, that was great. How do I get more? And it's that easy and that difficult. And brains like mine, and I think Matthew's was like that as well, you just really want to feel okay and be happy. So sometimes that can cloud your judgment and make you make decisions that may be outside of your character or what you want your character to be, because really at the end of the day, the character is a result of your choices now, isn't it? Anyways, let's get back on track here. Matthew would go from taking the ketamine as recommended to wanting way more than was recommended fast, as these things typically progress. When the clinic he was using refused to increase his dosage for his well-being, he decided to look elsewhere. And now we're going to get into the criminal part of today's story. When you become a doctor, you need to take the Hippocratic Oath, which specifically states do no harm. So no doctor would knowingly supply Matthew with the ketamine that would be taken without real supervision, enough ketamine to knock him out appropriately for a major surgery, while taking a hot tub alone, would they? Well, you know, we've got our crooked cops, crooked judges, and yeah, we've got crooked doctors, and most of these doctors are just straight greedy. I mean, you've got your sociopath and killer doctors as well, but today we're going to talk about the greedy doctors. Doctors so greedy they chose money over upholding the oath that we all really kind of collectively trust them to uphold. On October 28th of 2023, Matthew Perry was found by his assistant unresponsive in his hot tub. It would later be determined that he had died of a ketamine overdose or a drowning caused by a very large amount of ketamine in his system. Potato, potato. He was 54 years old. As of right now, there are actually 5 separate individuals who are being charged with Matthew Perry's death, and we're going to do a quick rundown of each of them. Apparently, Dr. Mark Chavez has agreed to plead guilty to 1 count of conspiracy to distribute ketamine and has already signed a plea deal. I'm assuming this would be to avoid being charged with manslaughter. Part of the deal also includes giving up his medical license, which is great. Apparently, he formally pled not guilty, but is expected to put this plea deal in this October, so stay tuned for that. He will face up to 10 years in prison. Dr. Chavez has admitted selling the ketamine to another doctor, Dr. Salvador Palacia. Sorry, not really sorry, but I don't know how to pronounce that. Knowing that it would be sold to Matthew Perry, knowing that Matthew Perry struggled with addiction issues. They used false prescriptions to get the ketamine to Perry, and apparently Dr. Palacia messaged Dr. Chavez stating, "I wonder how much this moron will pay." That really says it all, doesn't it? This doctor is one of the lead defendants in the case, and charges include conspiracy to distribute ketamine, 7 counts of distribution of ketamine, and 2 counts of altering and falsifying documents or records relating to the investigation. He has also lost his license to prescribe controlled substances, and if convicted, will face up to 120 years in prison, which somehow just doesn't seem long enough. The second lead defendant is a female defendant named Yasmin Sangha, who is also known as the Ketamine Queen, and who is accused of selling the doctors the fateful batch that ended up killing Perry. Both of these lead defendants have pled not guilty. Yasmin has been charged with conspiracy to distribute ketamine, maintaining a drug-involved premises, and possession with intent to distribute methamphetamines. She is also looking at 5 counts of distribution of ketamine. She will face 10 years in prison if she is found guilty. A fourth male named Eric Fleming, a director and producer who was an acquaintance of Perry's, has admitted to distributing the ketamine that killed him. He has pled guilty to 1 count of conspiracy to distribute ketamine and 1 count of distribution of ketamine resulting in death. The last person facing charges is Kenneth Iwamasa. I'm sorry with these names, they're all hard. Who was Perry's live-in assistant. He admitted he actually administered the ketamine shot to Perry that killed him. It was actually his 3rd shot that day. Kenneth had given him one around 8:30 that morning, a second one around 4 hours later, and then just 40 minutes after that, Perry requested a 3rd large injection, and Kenneth obliged. Then he drew him a hot tub and left him there while he ran errands, because that makes sense. This one just makes me so angry. He literally had a personal caregiver, and then he administered a huge amount of ketamine and leaves him to soak in a hot tub. What the f did they think was gonna happen? Anyhow, apparently he was doing this kind of regularly, and it was the 27th injection in total that Perry had racked up that week, leading to his death. Kenneth has pled guilty to conspiracy to distribute ketamine causing death. I find that interesting too. Our 2 lead defendants are pleading not guilty, and the 3 less culpable, I mean the assistant though, but the 3 they are looking at as less culpable all pled out to their charges. Anyhow, no matter how you look at it, it's just sad and tragic. And yes, I know things like this happen every day, but they shouldn't. And yes, we're paying more attention because it's Matthew Perry, but maybe sometimes that's why things like this happen to people like that, so that we do pay more attention, maybe. Anyhow, guys, for today's positive note, I just don't know. Matthew Perry was a light. He was a kind soul who struggled, but he kept going. And I know he helped my outlook on things over the years. If anything, just those big laughs sometimes. There's just something about a person who's obviously battling things inside, but tries so hard to spread happiness. He was literally a gem. And I will leave you with this clip I found while scrolling through Facebook.
Would you like to be remembered?
Lived well, loved well, was a seeker, and his paramount thing is that he wants to help people. That's what I want.
Thank you for being a friend, Matthew Perry. All right, everyone. We'll see you next week. Stay safe out there. Bye.